ma'am, say about important points about Sita Ma?
One of the messages that came through very clearly was that in that age, there was a deep connection and sense of oneness with the natural world. It wouldn't even occur to anyone to harm, to disrupt, because it was understood that we are all part of one flowing life energy. And so the rivers were alive, the forests were alive, they were part of a family. It was one living family. Well, we've lost that consciousness. And you can see what the loss has brought us to so much destruction. With the loss of that consciousness, we've destroyed so much of the natural world to the point where the earth is on edge. Systems that support life going to be destroyed. Well, thankfully, we've awakening in time to prevent that from happening. What is Sita calling us to do is reconnect. It's reestablish our oneness, our love, our care with the natural world. That was a very, very timely and important message. People ask me, how do we do that when you're not in charge of policy? Well, first it's the change in consciousness, and then the change in policy. It's from the bottom up, not from the top down. So what we each can do is in our own lives reconnect, spending time with the trees and really seeing them, not just not acknowledging them. Spending time with the plants, being more mindful of the food we eat. I've been a vegetarian for most of my life. I know that's an important part of Patriji's teachings, being more mindful. That's what we can each do. Sitting by a river, seeking out water, communicating with the animals. I had an experience which I can share, which came about after writing this book. I was on my way. In my work, I've organized sessions at the UN climate conferences, bringing spiritual teachers there to talk about the inner dimensions of climate change. I was on my way there, but I was stopped over in France overnight. The conference took place in Poland that year. And I had a very important dream that night, dream vision, where I was standing by my apartment in the city. I have an apartment on the East River. And a large whale swam up the river, stopped in front of my apartment. We made eye contact. And I said to the whale, I hear you. And then I woke up. And I woke up and I said to myself, I think I just made a commitment to represent the whales at the UN climate conference. The next day I was at the conference. I looked for every session I could on the seas. And I went to them, but not one mentioned animal life. It was all about how the pollution and warming of the seas are going to affect us. It was all me focused. I was in despair. I said, I made a commitment to represent the whales. They have no voice here. I have no place to speak about them. Well, I did speak about them in the session that we had organized on the spiritual dimensions of the climate crisis. But ever since that dream, which took place 5 or 6 years ago, whenever there's a crisis with the whales, I feel it in my heart. And so last summer, there was a situation where 50 whales put themselves into a circle and then beached themselves under Australia. Most of them died, but a few were saved, the young ones. The young ones were sent back into the sea. They again put themselves into a circle and beached themselves. It was a mass suicide. They were giving us a message, but how many people got that message? That they are in crisis. And what can I do? I have no policy. I mean, I'm not in charge of the seas. However, that portal has been opened where I feel what they're going through. In other words, I showed them that I cared. Now, fast forward to just a few weeks ago, there was the first conversation between a scientist and a whale. The scientist spoke to a whale in whale language. The whale responded. The scientist responded. For 15 minutes, this went back and forth. Now, the scientists don't yet know what that conversation was about, but the conversation took place. There was a response, a call and an answer, a call and an answer. And so I say to myself, maybe what I'm feeling, other people are feeling too, that it's time for us to acknowledge our family, our animal family, that they are family, and that we have to care for them. So this is one important message that I got from in writing that book that changed me. In other words, what I'm saying is, writing the book changed me, and I'm hoping it can change everybody who reads it. Now, the other message I got was the care for people. This book is told through the voice of a servant. And yet in that day, the servants were not regarded as being lower. There was no higher or lower. That concept did not exist in the Treta Yuga, higher and lower. That didn't exist. It was only much later that the hierarchies, there was no slavery, there was no conquest, there was none of the ills that came later. And yet look where we've come to as a society. And so I think it's very important to see the care that Sita gives to that servant. When the servant sprains her ankle, Sita has come from the highest consciousness. What is the first thing she does? She feeds the sages who are there. Then she tends to the wound of her servant. That message was for me, it's like, okay, that's how we have to conduct our life. That's how we have to conduct our life. Sita is teaching us how to conduct our life through the episodes in that book. And she was teaching me. I always say to people, I'm the one who's learning, because when I look back at my past, I had the blessing to be in the presence of great ones, but I didn't understand. I was at a much less developed point in my evolution. Now I understand the teachings. So the grace is that I'm getting those teachings anew at a time when I can really imbibe them. I can really understand them.
Thank you.